All right. So, where we left off was January. And January was when the exposure from desire happened. Now, after this exposure from desire happened, my husband was at this point playing it that he was one, upset about his actions, two, upset about the exposure that she had contacted, the family members, our family members, and, put this out on blast. And so he was in this space where he was like, I'm going to curse her out and, blase, blase, but she had blocked him. So that is when he pivoted and was like, well, I'm going to go stay the night at my brother's house and, kind of just put some space between you and I so that you are not kind of getting enraged at the thought of seeing me because of everything. And at the time, right, he was at his brother's house. It later came to my knowledge that he was actually at Sabrina's house. And so that was obviously when I heard and found out that news, that was kind of sad, but hey, it's all a part of the experience. Um, Now, what took place over the course of the next couple of months? I do want to say that if you are watching this and you have experienced postpartum depression, infidelity, financial loss, this may serve as a trigger for you if those subjects are very vulnerable for you. And so you may not want to continue watching this particular episode of my content because I do not want to put you in a space of vulnerability. But this is my truth and this is my story. And so I just want to be honest about it. All right. With that being said, I'll continue. So the next couple of months really served as a median point of faith being tested. So as a result of the exposure, of course, my initial reaction was rage and frustration. I cursed him out, called him everything but a child of God, let him know that, he has that Jezebel spirit attached to him, let him know that he was operating with Delilah energy, like just everything, telling him up and down, he's a horrible father, horrible husband. Like, why would you destroy our household this way? Like, literally told him off. Um, and he operated in the space of like that he wasn't sorry. Like that, yeah, he basically as though like he's sorry that it came out. Cause obviously by doing the action, he knew what he was doing. Um, so there's that, right? So during this time, we began not speaking at all, like operating in a space of just being in the household, but not communicating. And as a result of that, all of the responsibilities were then placed onto me. So, financial responsibilities, the household responsibilities, the responsibilities to carry the mental load of taking care of all of the bills, to make sure the well-being of the children was still sustainable, so making sure that they were operating in a healthy place while also dealing with my postpartum depression, while also trying to find a job, while also trying to overcome the infidelity that took place and the exposure and the embarrassment in my family, while also trying to make sure that I still showed up for him and helped him um get through his process for the police department, because during this time, even though he wasn't talking to me, he wasn't contributing to the household in any capacity, he still wanted me to help him with his process. And so I was heavily weighed down, as you can imagine. The only thing that he did do is pick up our oldest son from daycare, but that was came as a result of the fact that I ended up having to tell him, like, listen, you're coming home late hours of the evening. You're not at work during that time. You're at Sabrina's house. So to put all of the responsibility of me and on of the children onto me without like giving a little help is detrimental. Like why would you want your present wife, because I'm still his wife, right? Why would you want your wife and the mother of your children to be so burdensome that it affects and impacts the well-being of your children? Why would you want that? Why would you want our children to develop wounds from their own individual childhood experience that might later facilitate a need for them to go to therapy? I couldn't understand it. So at that point, I knew that spiritual warfare was at play. It had to be. There couldn't be any other reason. Like, and after having telling him, like, you got that Jezebel spirit, attached to you, you're dealing with some Delilah energy, like, I just continued to ask God to intercede on my behalf, for me to be a bridge in my marriage, and to just please give me the vision and the strength and the clarity and the focus to get through this time. Yes, admittedly, during this time, I still felt like there was hope within my marriage because I thought that spiritual warfare was at play. I literally thought that spiritual warfare was at play. And I couldn't see the damage that was actually done and the harm that was being done to myself, right? And my self-worth in those things. And I am not a medical professional, so I can't diagnose anyone as a narcissist, right? But if you've experienced being in a relationship with someone who has narcissistic tendencies, you know that there's the three things, right? The idolization, which is basically the love bombing, the devaluation, and then the discard. So basically, I was in the discard section, and he was with his new supply, who wasn't new in truth, right? Um, and so I was discarded. And I was only needed, my energy was only needed when it benefited him. And my energy was already depleted trying to, make sure our children were operating in a safe and healthy environment where they did not feel the impact of what was going on in the household. And there were times where I ended up having to curse him out, because I'm like, this, you're not financially contributing to any of the household expenses, right? Not even buying our youngest son diapers or wipes or basic needs that the children needed. I had to literally fuss about that to just get the children basic needs. And on top of that, because he was not contributing to the household financially, our bills began to pile up. He was utilizing the money that he was making from work to contribute to the household of Sabrina, to go on dates and to have fun and do those things. And so you can also imagine that being a fairly new mother, and then having an older child, dealing with the infidelity, the postpartum, trying to find a job, trying to overcome the shame and embarrassment, and then my husband to be out having a good time, right, with his concubine. The mental strain that put me in. And I'm so grateful to this day, not just for God, but for the people that he placed in my life, because I called on my friends and my family to fast with me, and they did so. It was their strength and the strength that God placed onto them to help me during that season that got me through, that allowed me to show up, that allowed me every day to wake up and still make it happen. But when I say to you, I didn't recognize myself, I was just almost a vessel operating. It was literally taking care of the kids, praying, trying to find a job, trying to make sure all of the bills were paid. Now, I still had like my severance package, I had unemployment, so there was money flowing in, but it was just my money flowing in, right? Like I was paying every single thing that was supposed to be a joint effort. Needless to say, um this took place over January, February, March. We get to April. April is where a shift happened. For whatever reason, he was getting closer to his progress within the police department. I was continuing to help him throughout this process. And so as a result, for whatever reason, something shifted in his heart and in his spirit. Now, me having been praying and everything like that, I thought, okay, God is transforming his heart, making his heart anew, like the things that I've been praying on. And so, yeah, like all of this spiritual warfare is coming to a closure. And he began to pick up the pace with building a connection with me, helping me out a little bit more around the house, like trying to do things, family activities. And so I was like, okay, these things are getting better. And then it took an even better shift where he seemingly was like more involved in being apologetic, being understanding, and wanting to salvage our marriage. And that's when I was like, okay, God really did his big one, like came in and saved the day. And this is like, this is what I would have to say is the most unfortunate piece, because I wish that that had not. I'm thankful that that happened, but I wish that it didn't. I wish that at that point in time, there would have just been something within me that chose to walk away then, that just didn't want to fight for it anymore. Um, and that I just walked away, but I didn't, because what ended up happening is in the month of April, his car got repossessed because he was not financially taking care of his responsibilities for his car either. And he was missing so many days of work that his checks became smaller and smaller. And so the money that he was getting, he was spending irresponsibly. So his car got repossessed, which put a huge strain onto me because I felt as like a slighted, since I had co-signed for that car for him. So I was just like, now my credit is in despair because of this. Um, and he just made all these promises. I'm going to help fix your credit and things like that. And of course, at the time, I believed him. And, you know, I had to rely heavily on my parents during this season, during up until April, where they were helping me and him in our household financially. And because he had lost his car, again, now picking up our oldest son and all of the things that involve the kids strictly back on me. But because our relationship was improving, I just continued to pray over it and have hope and things like that. Now, my husband finally got accepted into the police department. And when he did, it was so much excitement. Like we were just like, okay, this is a fresh start. And that's what he kept emphasizing to me. Like, this is a new beginning for us. This is a fresh start. We're really gonna like go into this. I'm gonna be a police officer. You're gonna be a police officer's wife, stay at home, taking care of the kids. Like, this is our new beginning. And I was so thrilled and I was really excited. And that's when I got the email. I got the email from Sabrina, who basically reintroduced herself as Sabrina and said that your husband is my man And, he's only with you because he feels that he has to be with you. But if it was his choice, he would be with me. He wants to be with me. And so it was a very, hey, Barbara, this is Shirley moment. And I just let her know that, like, hey, I've been praying for my husband, his deliverance. I've been praying over the adultery, the infidelity, and whoop de whoop. And so she was like, oh, you think that you're holier than thou and all of these things. Like you're not as, peaceful and calm as you say you are. Like, well, just basically trying to dim my light, because I was just coming at her from a space of grace. I told her, listen, I hope that you find your own husband. I hope that you never have to experience the things that I have experienced within my marriage. I hope that you find someone who can love you, and that you may this kind of love never find you, like, at all. And she was just like, yeah, whatever. You want somebody who has community D. You already knew that he had community D. Mind you, this is the same Sabrina that gave my husband, who has community D, a key to her house. You are the community. Okay? But needless to say, I was just like, okay, whatever. I bypassed that. Now, here's the piece of accountability. This stuff is coming to light to me. It's happening to me. I'm experiencing this and I'm bypassing that, right? Because I'm not listening to my inner self. I am not sitting with myself and really assessing what is transpiring. And that is so important, to not betray your intuition, right? Like, I kept questioning myself, like, should I walk away from this? Like, I think this is something that I should walk away. Are these things happening because God is telling me to walk away? And I kept putting it back in my mind, putting it back in my mind. And I kept saying, you know what? That's the enemy. That's the enemy trying to distract me from this divine union. So I thought, of me and my husband, and trying to distract me from my prayers, because they say, when you start praying, right, and you start praying heavily, like, the enemy is gonna attack. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'm being attacked. Like, let me get these thoughts out of my head. I gotta forgive my husband and move on. Baby, that was God. That wasn't the enemy. That wasn't the enemy. That was definitely God. That was definitely God telling me to listen, slow down, think about what's happening. Mm. Yeah. So the next things that took place were quite unfortunate, because my husband had lost his car and it was repossessed. I ended up having to drive my husband to and from um, his now acceptance into the police department. So he was set to start the academy in September, and the month now was August. And so for the entire month of August and a little bit of July, he didn't have, obviously, a car. So I was driving him 45 minutes to Pomona, California, at 5 a.m. with the kids in tow, coming back, getting the kids ready for school, taking them to school 30 minutes away, driving back to go pick him up, and then coming back home. It was a lot. It was a lot. And during this time, my family was still supporting us, which I'm really grateful to my mother and my father. But it took a toll on my body. It took a toll on my body. And there was one particular time where my husband said, um, I thank you for holding me down. Thank you for, um, you know, being here despite everything that I put you through the ringer. And I'm not gonna lie, at the time it made me feel like he finally recognizes me. He finally sees the love um that I've poured in. And I'm finally going to be like in a space of peace with him. Um and that just didn't happen. Uh and so I feel like I will probably go into the final part in my next in video, because I want to wrap this up. But I do want to touch on some lessons that I learned. So um in this particular section. So um one, a lustful man is a very dangerous man. He is a man who has not mastered his carnal desires and will place his children and others in a very harmful place. I also learned that someone who doesn't know how to be alone is someone who doesn't want to heal. Um, for me to experience what I was experiencing and for him to just jump into a situation with his new supply and not heal, not worry about my healing, not worry about how my healing impacted the children, our children, the ones that we created, that's dangerous. And that's definitely someone who doesn't know how to sit with their own self. Um, and then I recognized that I had people. That was like when I first recognized that I had people pleasing tendencies, as in a sense that like I show my love, or I felt that love had to be earned. It had to be earned through loyalty. It had to be earned through me showing up consistently and saying that I've done this, I've completed this, I'm holding us down, ride or die, ride or die, ride or die. Like that is how I felt like love had to be, because that is kind of what my childhood was. Like I felt like in order for my parents to love me properly, I had to have all these sort of achievements. And that, not to say that that was the case, but like I needed to heal my inner childhood wounds. And this is really important when you are assessing situations and you are taking accountability for how you played a role into this, because of my people pleasing tendencies, because of the lack of boundaries I had, because I felt like my love that I gave, it needed to show a representation of loyalty. I found myself hurting more than ever. And one of the things that I don't want to do is to create that same wound within my children. And so I am forced now to really address that and heal it. And so if anyone viewing this has, experienced or has loved in the same way as that, like I definitely encourage you to, really address that and heal. And while I share my journey and my story back to self, like I'm in therapy. Therapy is pivotal. Like this is not a section to cast off like what I've been through and not to heal through it. Like you actually have to put the work in. You have to, find resources that are going to help you. And so again, if this kind of stuff resonates with you, I do encourage you to seek help, seek support, seek your community, seek your tribe. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Much love, peace, and blessings to my tribe. Ashe.